Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Nine Sim Awesome Nine. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. So, I came across videos where Black people were talking about the atrocities that happened during slavery and how some people cannot also do without wanting to have plantation wedding. And sincerely speaking, everything they said happened. You see, slavery, the fact that these people are looking for a way to whitewash everything that happened to black people's experiences and all black people's experience and all that. I remember when I started talking about black people and first of all how I tried to get to know their history first because I started with getting to know the history before I started talking about racism because you can't just jump to racism without knowing what started the racism. It was at that point that I knew that I was in for something not great. When I say something not great, because I could not imagine a group of people experiencing such thing and still experiencing it to this very moment. I remember each time I want to talk about Black history, I am always like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to, because I did not believe that people went through this and still standing tall to this very moment. I don't know how Black people are doing it, but I am going to say that you people are the strongest human beings I've ever come across. Let's get into.
The more I find out about slavery, the more I can't sleep at night. While we're on the topic of comfort women and what happened in World War II, let's jump back into what happened in slavery because a lot of you guys want me to cover that. It goes so much farther than slaves and plantations. The things that were being done to Black people during this time was nothing short of sinister. Like, it was pure evil. You know the common curse word that we have, MFer? Do you know that comes from when they would take Black male slaves and to break their confidence if they came across too alpha, they would take them to an area where it could become a spectacle and publicly R-word them. These male white slave owners would publicly R-word, like brutally R-word these men to break their spirit in front of everyone. And they would make sure that their mothers, their wives, their children were there to watch. And in other instances, if they weren't going to R-word the slaves themselves, they would break their spirit by having them R-word their own mothers. And that's where the word MFer came from. So next time you're saying that, double think. And this was the beginning of trying to break down the father, the man in the Black household. Don't even get me started on that, y'all. Systemic racism is crazy. Now going on to the women. Did you know that when they wanted to study anything medical, when it comes to like the health of a white woman, they would try it first on a Black woman. Oftentimes, C-sections were performed on Black women while they were completely awake. No anesthesia, nothing was given to them. And if they somehow survived during this, they would take the babies and they would... Man, I don't even know if I can say this without getting banned. Viewer discretion is advised. TikTok, this is for educational purposes only. Please do not take my video down. They would take their babies, bury them. Bro, I can't even talk about this. They would bury them and have their heads above the ground, and they would basically play golf with the babies' craniums. Or if a woman had a baby, a Black woman had a baby, and their slave master's wife had a baby, they would force the Black woman to nurse the white baby while they watched their own child starve to death. And it would be forbidden for them to feed their own child. The babies were also used as alligator bait. That was a common thing as well. To top it all off, there were some plantations, this is going to be crazy, there were some plantations that even consumed the meat of their slaves. And obviously, you guys have seen it in the museum, they've used their hair as cushion for seats, for furniture. Slavery was so much more than they teach you in history class. I don't even know if it's being taught in history class anymore, but it's so much more. It's very much simplified and made more palatable because they don't want you to know exactly what happened. They don't want you to know the evil, the fact that the devil was present during that time. Anyway, y'all, make sure that you like and follow and comment down below another Roman Empire you guys want me to get into. Did you know that Bob Dylan actually wrote a song about the lynching that took place in Duluth, Minnesota? That's where 3 little boys were hung. Because why? Can you guess? Can you guess? You fucking guess? It's 1920. Can you guess why? A white woman claimed she was raped. And for those of you that are new to my page, the reason I put so much emphasis on that is because you'll find that that's a common thing. At one point in time, the only way to respond to black men raping white women was to kill them, beat them and kill them in public, right? So you already know that this was used as a tactic, and not all the time was it true. In fact, most of the time it wasn't true. A lot of times, the white woman was cheating on her husband with a black man, got found out, and said that he raped her. Or it just simply, there was no woman, right? It was just a reason to start being violent. This is going to be a brief synopsis of the Circus lynchings of Duluth, Minnesota. It's called the Circus lynchings because all 3 of these victims, and plus the other ones that were arrested, they all worked at the circus, either as cooks or just laborers. Like I said, this was 1920 in Duluth, Minnesota. 19-year-old Irene Tuscan claimed to have been raped by 6 teenagers from the John Robinson Circus. So after rounding up 100 plus teenagers that worked for this circus, they settled on 6 random kids and arrested them. A mob of 10,000 white people came to Minnesota to watch these boys be beaten, hung, and set on fire, to the point where the National Guard had to come in to save these boys. I was gonna call them men to save these boys. They saved 3 of the 6 that the mob kidnapped from the county jail with no restrictions. Like the police was damn near like, here are the keys. Typical announcement. I have a nonprofit called the Black Party Foundation. It's dedicated to keeping Black history in our schools. We're starting a 2-hour after school program. We're gunning to be at every school in the country. I can't do that without your support, your help, and donation. I was getting donations from TikTok, but they just stole $3,000 from me. So as of right now, I'm solely reliant on your donation. So I really hope that you can donate whatever you can. Also, I'll be speaking at Juneteenth. I'll be giving the educational piece about what Juneteenth is and how it's important and its significance. So I really hope to see you there. Juneteenth, Atlanta, at 10 a.m. ends at 10 p.m. and it's going to be at Piedmont Park. Also, please go support my YouTube and my Instagram. I'm definitely gonna do better with posting, especially after this TikTok ordeal, because I need to get it from somewhere else. But let's get back into it. They decided to hang them not all at once, but one at a time, because it would prolong the event. They called this an event. And the reason Bob Dylan comes in is because Bob Dylan's dad was 5 years old and he remembers them sending postcards about this. This was an event. Back to it. They hung them one by one from a lamppost, with Isaac McGee going first, Elmer Jackson second, and Elias Clayton third. That's when the National Guard came in and they were like, okay, this is becoming a bit much. But the National Guard actually was already there. They were just waiting on orders. They didn't do anything about the first 3. They were just waiting on orders to say stop. Of all of this, only 3 men out of 10,000 people was convicted of starting a riot. Nobody was convicted of murder. How does this relate to Bob Dylan? Because Bob Dylan's dad, like I said, was 5 years old when he saw this. He grew up. He was so traumatized by that he told his son about it, and his son made a song. It's called Desolation Row. And I have to say, the lyrics are actually pretty sad. It gives me strange fruit vibes. But did you know this?
America was not simply a plantation. It was a brothel. And the madams were white women. Let's cut through the historical cosplay. White women weren't delicate pawns on the chessboard of slavery. They were economic operatives, slavers in silk, human traffickers disguised as genteel wives. The entire fantasy of their innocence collapses under a single documented truth. They were her property. Dr. Stephanie E. Jones-Rogers didn't just write a book. She exhumed a crime scene. What she found? White women didn't just benefit from slavery. They were agents of it. Fully. Financially. Psychologically. They bought, sold, and inherited black people. Brutalized them. Including and especially black women. with the surgical precision of Wall Street investors. Not helpmeets, not passive recipients. They were the primary slavers in many transactions. They inherited enslaved people as dowries. They used them as collateral for loans. They leveraged the bodies of black girls to buy land, purchase goods, and secure power. These women learned from girlhood that their survival was bound not to virtue, but to domination. And domination had a name: slavery. This isn't just about gender. This is about whiteness as economic infrastructure. Patriarchy didn't cancel out their power. It delegated it through motherhood, inheritance, and domestic management. White women were trained to be plantation CFOs. They weren't crying because slavery was cruel. They were crying when emancipation threatened their portfolio. Even after the Confederacy crumbled, they filed claims with the federal government, demanding restitution for the humans they could no longer legally own. These weren't broken windows. They were angry investors seeking return on lost assets. And this is where the white feminist project cracks. When the discourse skips over the plantation wife, it doesn't just erase her. It recycles her. Every time whiteness centers white women as universal victims, it reenacts the same historical cover-up, turning slavers into sisters, turning traffickers into tea drinkers, turning a racial economy into a gendered anecdote. Ask yourself, when your favorite feminist says we, who is she talking about? Not the black women bred against their will, not the indigenous girls sterilized by settler medicine, not the global south whose labor props up today's feminist brunches. No, she's talking about whiteness wrapped in virtue signaling. The plantation mistress is not a relic. She's a prototype, a model of domination disguised as domesticity. She doesn't need a whip. She has the law. She has inheritance. She has narrative control. So remember this: white women were not bystanders. They were auctioneers. They were breeders. They were profiteers. And when we say we remember what they erased, we mean this. We mean her. We remember her name not to mourn her, but to indict her, because she wasn't their sister. She was their prophet. Cope.
I was just sitting here vibing for a second, just chilling, and then I was struck with awe and disbelief at the fact that plantation weddings are still a thing, and no one seems to be concerned with that. And I feel like this leads into the bigger issue of how slavery has been minimized due to the fact that history has been erased and rewritten in our everyday curriculum. But I feel as if plantation weddings happening today, in this day and age, really reveals how much, or how little actually, gravity and weight is given towards the atrocities of slavery. That you go and you want to have one of the most important days of your life, getting married to someone you love and care about, inviting your family and friends, having a whole ceremony so that you could be wed in holy matrimony. And you do that on a slave plantation. And no one seems to have any indignation towards this or any anger or frustration when they do that and post it and go viral. And it's like, oh, it's so historic, huh? What? Like, I don't think people would be okay if you had a wedding at a crime scene. I don't think people would be okay if you had a wedding at the site of mass murder. Yet, people are okay to have weddings, whole weddings, on a plantation. Do we not see the problem with that? And it's like, it also leads into the bigger issue of the lack of accountability and the full out dismissal of the truth about the role that race has played and still plays in this nation. And I've said it once and I'll say it again, we can't address an issue or fix it if we act as if it doesn't exist. And it's troublesome how normal it is to make jokes about slavery, or the fact that slavery in and of itself has become a thing that people look at as almost having no impact on people, on generations, on systems. The fact that reparations were never paid or given to formerly enslaved people. The fact that during Reconstruction, when things were given, not reparations, but things that were promised, were given that were later taken away. The fact that you never, ever saw those who fought to support slavery during the Civil War be held accountable for literally going to war to keep people enslaved. The fact that you have people today who deny the existence of systemic issues as a direct result of 400 years of a nation being built on the backs of one demographic of people. Like, it's mind-boggling to me, genuinely, that all of this stuff, and then you have people who take the time out of their day to say slavery wasn't bad, or you had someone else who said that if a state wanted to vote to have slavery in their state, she'd support it because she supports a state's right to do what they want. And we don't give enough gravity and weight to what really happened. We don't. And this is not to say go make another movie about slavery, because we all know how sad and you know, heavy those are, right? But the stories need to be told. This is, however, to say, stop erasing history and stop normalizing talking about things like slavery in such a nonchalant manner. It is something of the past, a thing of the past, but many people don't know is that it's still legal today. In our Constitution, the 13th Amendment, you cannot enslave people except as punishment for a crime in which they are duly convicted. That except piece, that qualification, that little loophole that was put there, then you saw an influx in privatized prisons, an influx in the hypercriminalization of black people, especially black men. You saw heightened police presence in black communities, arresting black people to put them in prison, all by design to maintain the institution of slavery. Let's not forget history and stop having those plantation weddings.
This is all I got from this video. Will they ever hear? Will they ever listen? Will they ever understand? No. It's all about fetishization, because tell me how somebody will wake up and say it is plantation that he wants to have a wedding. And I am so glad that the one that burned completely. And I hope it can never be rebuilt again, because these people are so good at using your trauma to make money. Or using, I don't even know how to say, because this one is beyond making money. They take your trauma and make it look like it is nothing. Or you do not even have the right to even talk about your trauma or the things that happened to your ancestors or your extension, because your ancestors are your extensions. I love the fact that it burned, and I look forward to more to burn. See, you know one thing I hate? I hate it when each time black people talk about slavery and the things they experienced, their ancestors experienced, and the things they are still experiencing, because that trauma passed down. Right? And some people will say, we also are going through that. Shut up. Shut up. and don't speak. Because, you see, there are, majority of the things that I show here, some people do not believe they are real. Some people do not believe they are real. And the same thing with me. I am sorry to say this, but it is the truth. When I started to, because when, first of all, when I started talking about, I didn't start with racism and all that. First of all, I needed to know more about Black people. I started with Black history, getting to know Black people, getting to learn about Black people, and getting to understand them more. That was where I started. Then before I found out about all the massacres that happened, like all of it, all those places, all these things were the things I tried to learn first before talking about racism, because I feel like if I do not get to know these people, then I will just be talking on a shallow-minded aspect of it. You need to know what caused all these things first. And when I started learning, at some point, I remember crying, like literally, every time I talk about, I was crying. Why was I crying? I was crying because I knew slavery happened, but I did not know it was all this. All this happened. At first, I couldn't believe it. It was hard for me that there was never Black history that I thought that I did not cry. Not until I remember so many people consoling me, writing me emails and all that, telling me, it's okay, you can take it one step at a time and all that. See, I do not like it when Black people talk about their experience and other people jump into it. Just shut up. Just shut your mouth up. Because what these people went through, you did not go through it. You people do not understand it. And one thing I also love about Black people is the fact, I'm so sorry, I don't know if it's, one thing I love about Black people is the fact that majority of the things that happen to them, they speak about it. And it is from speaking about it that will make somebody know about it. And it is from us and every other person saying it rightly will make other people to get to know more about it. Everything that happened to Black people, everything they experienced, their ancestors, they did not permit that to happen. It was what happened by force. It was against their will. So each time I talk about reparations and all that, I know why I am screaming about reparations. I know why I'm screaming about it. So all these things these young people talked about, they all happened. And some are still happening today. And the best I can say is, enough of all these plantation weddings. You all stop that BS, because that thing is bullshit. You all are crazy. And I am sure if this thing were other people, they would not tolerate that. That's why you never hear them talk about the Holocaust and the reparations they got. It's only when it comes to Black people that you hear them speak. I will draw the curtain here and I will see you all in my next video. Bye for now.